In May 1941, the most powerful battleship ever built slipped into the North Atlantic on a top-secret mission. It had taken 5 years to build. It weighed 50,000 tons. It carried a crew of over 2,000 men. And it lasted 8 days. Not because it was outgunned, not because it ran out of ammunition, but because of one torpedo. That hit one rudder at exactly the wrong moment. This is the story of the Bismarck and the 8 days that changed naval history forever. By the end of this video, you will understand why the most feared battleship in the world was also one of the most vulnerable. The secret mission that sent 2,000 men into the North Atlantic. The battle that shocked the entire British Empire. The single torpedo that sealed the Bismarck's fate. And the final moments when the crew made a decision that historians still debate today. The Bismarck was 251 meters long, over 50,000 tons, built in Hamburg, launched the 14th of February, 1939. Hitler called it unsinkable. He was wrong. By exactly 8 days. To understand why the Bismarck mattered, you need to understand what the war looked like at sea in 1941. Britain was an island nation. Everything it needed, food, oil, weapons, arrived by ship across the Atlantic. If Germany could cut that supply line, Britain would starve. The war would be over. Hitler's plan had 2 weapons: U-boats beneath the surface, and surface battleships that could destroy entire convoys in open battle. The Bismarck was the crown jewel of that surface fleet. 8.38-centimeter guns, shells weighing 800 kilograms, range of 35 kilometers, armor, plating over 32 centimeters thick enough to deflect almost anything the British could fire at it. The crew believed they were invincible. On the 19th of May, 1941, under cover of darkness, the Bismarck slipped into the Baltic on its maiden voyage. Mission, codenamed Operation Rheinübung, Operation Rhine Exercise. The objective was simple: break into the open Atlantic, hunt Allied convoys, starve Britain into submission. What happened next, nobody predicted. The British knew something was coming. Reconnaissance aircraft were dispatched over Norwegian fjords. On May 21, a Swedish cruiser spotted the Bismarck moving north. The information reached London within hours. 2 British warships moved to intercept. The HMS Prince of Wales, a brand new battleship barely in service, and the HMS Hood, the pride of the entire Royal Navy. So famous, so beloved, the British public considered it a national symbol, the largest warship in the world for over 2 decades. School children learned about it. Sailors dreamed of serving on it. On the morning of May 24, in the Denmark Strait, the freezing waters between Greenland and Iceland, the Hood and Prince of Wales closed in. At 5:52 a.m., the guns opened fire. What happened in the next 8 minutes changed everything. A German shell from the Bismarck at a range of 17 kilometers penetrated the Hood's rear magazine. The ammunition ignited instantaneously. The sailors aboard Prince of Wales watched in horror as the Hood buckled, broke in 2, and sank. 3 survivors, from 1,421 men. The Hood was gone in 8 minutes. The Prince of Wales, damaged and outgunned, retreated. The Bismarck had just destroyed the pride of the Royal Navy on its very first day of combat. But here is the thing nobody talks about. The Bismarck won that battle, decisively, completely. And that victory, that single moment of triumph, is what ultimately destroyed it. Because what the Bismarck's captain didn't know in that moment of celebration was that he had just made the entire British Empire furious. And a furious empire with 1,000 ships does not stop hunting. Within hours of the Hood's sinking, Winston Churchill issued one of his most famous orders: sink the Bismarck. Every available British ship in the North Atlantic was redirected. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, aircraft carriers, the full weight of the Royal Navy bearing down on one ship. But the Bismarck had a problem. During the battle, a British shell had struck its fuel tanks. Oil was leaking into the ocean, leaving a visible trail across the surface of the Atlantic. The ship that was supposed to be invisible was now marking its own position. Captain Lindemann made the decision to abandon the mission and head for Brest in German-occupied France for repairs. A reasonable decision. It was also the decision that sealed the fate of 2,000 men. For 2 days, the Bismarck ran, using darkness and Atlantic storms to shake off its pursuers. For a terrifying moment, it worked. The British lost contact completely. Then, at 10:30 on May 26, a Catalina flying boat spotted something in the water below. An oil slick. The Bismarck had been found. The British launched an air attack. 15 Fairey Swordfish torpedo bombers from HMS Royal. These were not modern aircraft. The Swordfish was a biplane, a design so outdated it belonged in the First World War. Canvas and wire, barely 90 knots. The Bismarck's crew laughed when they saw them coming. One torpedo hit the Bismarck's rudder and jammed it at a 1-2 degree angle. The Bismarck could no longer steer. The most powerful battleship ever built was now sailing in circles in the middle of the North Atlantic, with the entire British Navy closing in. Captain Lindemann tried everything: reversing engines, adjusting propellers, manual rudder control. Nothing worked. That night, the crew sent a final message to German Naval Command. "Ship unmaneuverable. Will fight to the last shell. Long live the Führer." On the morning of the 27th of May, 1941, the British arrived. HMS King George V, HMS Rodney, HMS Dorsetshire, HMS Norfolk. For 100 minutes, they fired everything they had. 400 hits, and the Bismarck was still afloat. Burning, listing heavily. Every gun silenced, every senior officer dead or dying, but still afloat. Then came the moment historians still debate. The surviving officers gave the order to scuttle to open the sea valves and sink the Bismarck themselves. Was it defiance, surrender, or the final duty of men who knew they were already dead? Around 10:40 a.m., the Bismarck slipped beneath the waves. British ships pulled 110 survivors from the water before a U-boat warning forced them to leave. 110 survivors, from a crew of over 2,000. Less than 10 days after its maiden voyage began, the unsinkable Bismarck sat on the bottom of the Atlantic, nearly 3 miles down, 596 miles west of the French coast, where it remains today. The sinking of the Bismarck proved the age of the great battleship was ending. The future belonged to aircraft carriers, submarines, and weapons that could strike from distances no battleship could match. Germany never attempted another major surface operation in the Atlantic. The Bismarck was built to rule the ocean, sever the Allied lifeline, win the war. Instead, it lasted 8 days, was crippled by an obsolete biplane, and took 2,000 men to the bottom with it. The wreck was discovered in 1989 by Robert Ballard, the same man who found the Titanic. It lies on the ocean floor largely intact, its massive gun turrets still pointing toward the surface as if waiting for an enemy that will never come. 2,000 men died on that ship. They believed they were unsinkable. The ocean disagreed. What do you think actually sank it, British firepower, or the crew's own decision to scuttle? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe to Iron Ink every week. We go deeper into the ships the ocean refused to give back. Next week, the Titanic, and the decisions made in the hours before the sinking that history never fully explained. Iron Ink, where the ocean tells the truth, the deep never forgets.